Welcome to another day of learning with Ma'am Balbia. Today, we will talk about the first subtopic on the research methodology. Chapter 3 is methodology. This chapter covers how the research problem is to be investigated. It includes the research design, sample and sampling methods, the instruments to be used, the research procedures, and the data analysis. If you still remember, there are two broad classifications of quantitative research design: experimental research design and non-experimental research design. Experimental research design concerned primarily with cause and effect relationships in studies that involve manipulation or control of the independent variables and measurement of the dependent variables. Under experimental research designs, there are three types: true experimental, quasi-experimental, and pre-experimental design. A design is considered a true experiment when the following characteristics are present. The researcher manipulates the experimental variables. The researcher has control over the independent variables. There must be one experimental group and one comparison or control group, and the subjects are randomly assigned either to the comparison or experimental group. The true experimental research design has three subtypes: pre-test post-test controlled group design, post-test only controlled group design, and Solomon four-group design. In pre-test post-test controlled group design, the subjects are randomly assigned to groups. A pretest is given to both groups. The experimental group receives the treatment while the control group does not, and a post-test is given to both groups. In post-test only controlled group design, the subjects are also randomly assigned to groups. The experimental group receives the treatment while the control group does not, and post-test is given to both groups. The last in true experimental research design is Solomon four-group design. Subjects are randomly assigned to one or four groups. Two of the groups, experimental group 1 and control group 1, are pre-tested. The other two groups, experimental group 2 and control group 2, receive the routine treatment and no treatment. A post-test is given to all four groups. Quasi-experimental research design: a design in which either there is no control group or the subjects are not randomly assigned to groups. There are two kinds of quasi-experimental research design: non-equivalent controlled group design and time series design. Non-equivalent controlled group design. This design is similar to the pretest post-test controlled group design, except that there is no random assignment of subjects to the experimental and control group. Time series design. In this design, the researcher periodically observes or measures the subjects. The last type of experimental research design is pre-experimental research design. This experimental design is considered very weak because the researcher has little control over the research. The two kinds of pre-experimental research design are one-shot case study and one-group pre-test post-test design. In one-shot case study, A single group is exposed to one experimental treatment and observed after the treatment. One group pretest post-test design. This design provides a comparative description of a group of subjects before and after the experiment treatment. Non-experimental research design is a study when a researcher cannot control, manipulate, or alter the predictor variable or subjects, but instead relies on interpretation, observation, or interactions to come to a conclusion. Typically, this means the non-experimental researcher must rely on correlations, surveys, or case studies and cannot demonstrate a true cause and effect relationship. The first thing that will come to your mind when you hear non-experimental research design is survey studies. Survey studies aim to describe the characteristics, opinions, attitudes, and behaviors as they currently exist in a population. The non-experimental research designs can be classified into three. The first one is retrospective. In retrospective, the criterion variable is identified in the present, and an attempt is made to determine the predictor variable that occurred in the past. The second is cross-sectional. In cross-sectional, the data are collected at a single point in time. The design requires subjects who are at different points, phases, or stages of an experience. The subjects are assumed to represent data collected from different time periods. The last is longitudinal. In longitudinal, the researcher collects data from the same people at different times. There are several kinds of non-experimental research design according to purpose. We will discuss only the most common. Let us begin with descriptive. Descriptive design aims to gather more information on certain characteristics within a particular field of study. The purpose is to provide a picture of a situation as it naturally happens. Comparative. This design is used to compare and contrast representative samples from two or more groups of subjects in relation to certain designated variables that occur in normal conditions. The results obtained from this analysis are frequently not generalized in a population. Correlational. This design is used to investigate the direction and magnitude of relationships among variables in a particular population. It is designed to study the changes in one characteristic or phenomenon, which correspond to the changes in another or with one another. Evaluative. This design involves making a judgment of worth or value. It allows the researcher to delineate, obtain, and provide information that is useful for judging decision alternatives when conducting a program or service. It can be formative or summative. Recap of the topic for today. The two broad classifications of quantitative research design, experimental and non-experimental research design. Under experimental, we have true experimental, quasi-experimental, and pre-experimental research design. In true experimental, we have the pre-test post-test controlled group design, post-test only controlled group design, and Solomon 4 group design. In quasi-experimental, we have the non-equivalent controlled group design and time series design. Pre-experimental, we have the one-shot case study, and the one-group pre-test post-test design. For non-experimental research design, survey study, then further classified into two groups, time orientation and purpose. According to time orientation, we have the retrospective, cross-sectional, and longitudinal. According to purpose, we discuss four: descriptive, comparative, correlational, and evaluative. That's all for today. I hope that you can now determine and write your studies research design. Happy writing!